Hello.
Hello, happy day.
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. It's very dark. I can't quite cope with how dark it is, which every year
Oh,
gets
yes.
me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Hi, Diana. Thanks for the wave. Yeah. I know it might be a quiet one. It might pick up a little bit more, but I think this is more for like posterity. And I guess we didn't announce that we were going to do it. So it's meant to be quite laid back and informal. Um, yeah. So I guess, yeah, mostly we're just going to talk about what the theme is for the month of November, what we have planned, and I'll kind of let you take the lead on it. Annabelle, if maybe you want to explain to everyone kind of what we are hoping to focus throughout or to showcase throughout the month, the different kind of topics and issues, and then generally the rhetoric that's kind of ongoing and why we feel it's quite topical to deal with this issue this month.
So, as an announcement, the theme for November on Human Rights Pulse is activist lawyers. And I feel that this topic has been bubbling under the surface for a little while now, a few months. Across the world, actually, I think it's not something which is really strictly confined to a particular region. And that's why I think it's a really interesting rhetoric that it's really coming to the surface now. So for those who maybe don't know from different regions, there's been an increase across the globe in politicians in particular really taking aim at lawyers. And this is not just a particular kind of lawyer. It's a lawyer who is doing anything from helping refugees to maintaining human rights, but also to maintaining the rule of law in some places, a real domestic, basic part of law. And the politicians are starting to use lawyers as an increasingly political tool and are castigating them, to be honest. They're calling them activists in a very pejorative sense. And they're putting up this narrative that it tends to be slightly left-wing narrative that the lawyers they're not for you, the people. They're out there and they're helping all those people that you don't like or that are anti our values. They're helping them and they're getting them to places that they shouldn't be. They are going against our system. And we at Human Rights think that actually lawyers do a huge amount of work across the globe, and they do a huge amount of work that often goes unseen because they're doing their job, and that's the irony of it. And so we want to really celebrate them and across the globe really shine lights on areas where lawyers maybe are slightly more under threat. And I think that this is something which I think a lot of people will resonate with. So in terms of the areas that we think are really interesting, I think at the moment with the US election tomorrow, obviously we've now got a conservative majority in the Supreme Court in the US for the first time in forever. I think that the lawyers there, lawyers are such a big part of the American political, and they're such a big part of American society. I think that's a really interesting area to see what lawyers are doing on the ground in terms of human rights, in terms of politics in the US. Obviously, all turns on tuppence tomorrow. But I think that certainly when I was growing up, I didn't really that you could have lawyers who roll back rights. I know that sounds silly, but it wasn't something when I was 10, I was worried that my rights were going to be infringed. I thought we'd keep gaining them. I didn't think we'd lose some. But in terms of now you've got a conservative majority on the Supreme Court, in terms of what's happening in Poland, for example, with attacks on the rule of law and the anti-abortion rhetoric that's happening there, it's really important. And there are some people who are on the ground whose day job is to maintain those rights that we all have. So that's the US. Another area I think is Nigeria. That's the End SARS movement is one which is being led by on the ground activists. But you are seeing pockets of areas of lawyers really putting their heads above the parapet in a not nice situation to help people and to really say, no, this is the law, this is a bad law, we should, how we get out of that situation. And often, you know, you'll have some areas where lawyers are really at the forefront of human rights activism. You'll have other areas where maybe they're not so much, but they always play a really crucial role at some point in activism with human rights. The third area I think is really important not to forget is when the cameras go off and something else happens somewhere else, you have to remember that the groundwork is still happening. And for me, that is Hong Kong. And especially with the rule of law there, I think that the Hong Kong bar is doing incredible work to really keep that agreement that happened in '97, to really keep the soul of that agreement alive. And again, that's somewhere that you put your head above the parapet there, that's very scary. And the umbrella movement and the movements that followed that there, they have been supported immensely by the Hong Kong bar. And that is somewhere I think that we're not focusing on so much, mainly because, you know, the world moves on, the world's press moves on. But I think it's somewhere where nothing's changed, nothing positive has happened there. And to me, that is somewhere where the lawyers have really had a real instrumental role. And then the fourth area, for me, I'm British, is here at home. For me, the activist lawyers slogan, I first saw it when our Home Secretary called lawyers activists for doing their job in helping asylum seekers. And that's, I think that's incredible, that the Home Secretary in the UK sees a lawyer who's doing their job, calls them an activist in a very negative sense. And we are a country, as are many other common law systems, that are built on legal aid, are built our access to justice. And that's quite frightening to me. And so I think the fourth area, but I think is really interesting, is domestic politics. It's the idea that with a swing to the right, you have an attack on law. And it's an attack on law in a theoretical sense. And you can see a lot of people tweeting on the fall of the rule of law, but it's also an attack on those people. And it's those people, it's lawyers who are maintaining that. And that is crucial. I don't think the importance of the rule of law can ever be understated, because that is what, to me, that is what everything is built upon. All those rights that you try and get theoretically, the foundation of that is the rule of law. Because without that, it's all just theory. So that's very long-winded, and I hope no posterity. But what we want at Human Rights Pulse is, well, the great thing about it, I personally think it's an amazing thing, is that we have so many contributors from across the globe who write about subjects that I've never heard of, and that's incredible to read about. And often are law students or lawyers, or they have a real, that's how they practice their human rights activism. So what we want to do is through our social media, is through the website, is through contributions, it's through Instagram Lives, is to highlight lawyers. And it can be anyone from people right at the top of big human rights organizations making a massive difference, or it can be people on the ground who actually, their very existence means that somebody's life is better and people have more human rights. So I guess it's just a call this month to highlight people that you think are activist lawyers and really celebrate that term, because people are doing amazing things.
Yeah, no, that's really well put. Like, incredible, Annabelle. And yeah, really to highlight the fact that we would like, if there is, you know, if you are a practitioner, if you work within these organizations and there are people working on things that you want highlighted, that you want brought to be featured, and just for us to kind of shine a light on that, do send us, you know, their details, their information. We would love to write pieces on them. We'd love to have them contribute. We would love to do live sessions with them to just talk about them, the work that they do, why they think the work that they do is important, and the necessity of why we have lawyers and why lawyers need to exist and why we have, you know, judicial systems and legal systems and laws, and how that kind of allows us to function, and why that needs to be separated from parliament or government or, you know, Congress or whatever is kind of your political build up in your local jurisdiction, and why there does need to be that separation, why we cannot have our governments necessarily kind of impinging and saying things and trying to denigrate what is ideally supposed to be a profession that is very separated and does not ever do anything with sort of clear political leanings in the way that they may do the work that they do as kind of lawmakers. So yeah, that's very much, I think, really quite well put. And that's really kind of the plan for the month, is if you also do want to contribute to Enright, aside from nominating anyone, that's also something we would love to see people do this month.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy Activist Lawyers Month.
Yeah. So yeah, that I think is most of what I had, and like the kind of purpose of this. I don't know if you have anything else that you want to add, Annabelle.
No, I'm on a 5-minute ramble. Nobody else is here.
No, definitely. Yeah, so that's fantastic. So yes, do message us, email us, website www.humanrightspulse.com, and our email info@humanrightspulse.com. We are always happy to hear from you. Connect with us on social media. We have a LinkedIn account, we have Facebook, we have Twitter. If there's a social media, we might be on Snapchat and TikTok soon. So we are really on every platform you can imagine. So yeah, happy, you know, Activist Lawyer Month. Happy November. And for those of you tuning into the election, stay strong and let's all hope for favorable results. Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of us. Thank you so much for people who did tune in. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. Good night, everyone.